let's go ahead and kick this off. So today is obviously February 21st, 2019. We are here today talking about selling globally on Amazon, and we're going to be covering actionable strategies for increasing revenue and decreasing costs. So we are Teikametrics here. First Choice Shipping is our guest of honor here, and let's actually go through the speakers here. So I am the dapper gentleman on the left here, Jason McGee, Director of Seller Partnerships. And Pearl, how about you introduce yourself here real quick?
Sure. So, hey everybody, my name is Pearl. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at First Choice Shipping. I've been with the company for almost 5 years now. And yeah, so we basically started out as a small little mom and pop type of company. And at this point, we are recommended by Amazon for our international capabilities, our Amazon international shipping capabilities. So yeah, really excited to be here today. Thank you all for joining us. And yeah, Jason, thanks for arranging this.
Yeah, no, thank you as well. I mean, Pearl, as I mentioned, I've been looking forward to this. So, you all at First Choice Shipping, you've had a crazy run, and you continue to do very well. And you have a direct relationship with Amazon. They actually share a lot of leads with you. We both done webinars with them, so I definitely want to make sure we cover some nuggets from that vantage point as well. So,
Yeah,
a few housekeeping tasks here. Continue to ask questions, and we're going to be having some folks. We're going to have a few folks standing by to answer them, but also we're going to save some time for the end. So please ask away. And separately, we'll go through this with the agenda, which will be next, but we're going to have some bonus offers for you. Also, stay tuned to the end. So we have a packed audience here. So we have a packed audience. So let's just go through what we're going to cover today in the agenda. So number one, the importance of selling globally on Amazon. Number two, sizing up the global Amazon marketplace opportunity and sharing some really good data that can help inform you guys as where you should be going. I'm going to take us back to gross margin and the levers we can pull to help improve it. And then how to ship to FBA internationally, strategies to lower shipping costs and decrease lead time. Pearl is going to cover a lot about mistakes to be made and how to avoid them. Then we'll round that out about talking about advertising globally to gain market share and driving total revenue. So that being said, let's go ahead and kick this off. You are in the right place if you are already running a successful business on Amazon globally. If you are selling on at least one other Amazon channel outside of your home country and you're looking to scale, and last but certainly not least, you're not currently selling outside of your home country, but on Amazon, but yet you're planning to in the next 6 to 12 months. So let's go ahead and kick this off with a poll. Where is your business in regards to selling globally on Amazon? Let me go ahead and launch this poll. And so it should be popping up on your screen here, and go ahead and select where we are here. I'm going to give that another few seconds here. Great. Let me go ahead and close this
this
off
one's
then.
interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So, great. I'm going to go and close the
Right.
poll, and let's share these results real quick. So, it's actually pretty even breakdown here. So we have 30% have never sold outside of their home country. About 18% are testing, selling globally. They haven't fully committed. Almost 40% are actively selling in at least one other country, but plan to scale. And then the top 14% are folks who are running global businesses already. Pearl, that's a really good mix here. A lot of times you have a lot of folks who haven't gotten
Wow.
started. We have a lot of folks who are selling.
Right.
Very, very good. I love being able
Fantastic.
to. What's great to run a poll too, because we actually have the ability to then tailor what you and I are going to talk about. Don't now we just have to make it up on the fly, right?
Absolutely. I'm just going to have to make sure to drop some super new nuggets,
That
new opportunities. So
that's
sellers that are already
exactly right.
expanded out, yeah, we'll make sure to cover that.
Yeah, great, great. So moving on to the next one then. So where does Amazon have marketplaces globally? So Amazon runs 13 marketplaces globally, and I'm sure by the time, a month from now, it'll probably be more than that. 175 fulfillment centers, 180 plus countries with loyal Amazon customers, and over 30 categories. And let's look at this in a graphical representation here. So Pearl, you and I talk about this a lot. It's funny because look how big Canada is, and people think that naturally Canada is a great next step. But
Yep.
first off, I mean, talk to me about that first. I know you have a lot to say about that.
Yeah. So when it comes to expanding internationally, it's interesting, but basically the first market that people are thinking to get into is Canada because they think Canada is, it's right here. On the map, it looks huge, like you could see, right here. They speak English. It seems fairly simple, but people don't realize that it is just a lot of empty land with a very small population. And it's actually more complicated with customs going into Canada versus getting into the Amazon EU marketplace, which
Yeah,
covers way more territory as far as buyers go. There are millions and millions of buyers combined within the entire EU versus Canada.
yeah,
So, just some numbers to give people an idea. For Canada, they say you should be doing like 10% of what you're doing in the US versus in the EU, they're saying they being Amazon, you should be doing around 25%. So, as far as I can recommend, definitely go first with the EU versus Canada. This is, very deceiving, actually. If you look at the map, it
yeah.
might look exciting, but not the case at all.
Well, so when you say EU, is it actually UK or actually all of EU combined to get that 20 to 25% lift?
So it's everything combined, and we'll go a
That's
little bit
incredible.
further down the slides, and we'll explain how we could access all five,
Yeah,
all five
yeah.
countries in the
That,
EU.
no, that's great. So I think a logical next step, and I think it's very important. I'd love to know. Maybe I should have had another poll. Is what market are you guys selling in? UK is typically the best next step if you're an English speaker already, because obviously it's actually just a bigger marketplace than Canada. But interestingly enough, Pearl, the second largest marketplace on Amazon is actually Germany. And I know you mentioned
Yep.
that in general it is bigger, but it also depends on category. So when you're thinking about where you should expand or whether you're going to enter a certain market, it really does come down to the category you're selling in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I've had my customers that are selling electronics tell me that DE Germany is a bigger market. And then interestingly enough, I had clients that sell in Spain that will tell me that toys is something that is much stronger in Spain versus the UK or Germany.
Yeah,
So it really depends on what you're selling. It's all a, trial and error kind of thing when you're starting out.
yeah. No, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of really powerful nuggets, as we say, that we just said here. So if you're selling in Canada, you should expect about a 10% addition to the GMV you're doing in the US. If you're selling in Europe, you could expect 20 to 25%. And then, even though Germany is the largest marketplace, there are some challenges when it comes to translation, et cetera, compared to the UK. So a lot of folks typically start with the UK.
Yeah.
Great, great. That's very good. So, where's this growth coming from? So this is from Marketplace Pulse, and this shows a graphical representation of new sellers who launched on Amazon's marketplace last year in 2018. So in 2018, more than 1.2 million sellers joined Amazon's marketplace. This equates to 3,459 new sellers every day, or 144 every hour, or equivalent of 2 every minute. So what's awesome about this is, yes, Amazon US got 28% of the new listings. And all these other marketplaces, which are still very big and large, they actually got all less new sellers started there. But collectively, the crazy thing about this stat is near the 3 and 4 new sellers on Amazon's marketplace were not started in the US, which is Amazon's largest channel. So
Wow.
yeah, so let's actually dive in and just look at North America. So this is a graph that comes directly from Amazon Global Selling. So the misnomer here is that North America is obviously inclusive of Canada. Canada represents probably less than 10% of that total number. But even if you keep Canada in there, there's 170 million unique visitors a month on Amazon in North America. In Europe, that's another 125 million. It's almost closer to parity when you move Canada out and put it with the rest of the world. So what we're showing you here is if you're not focusing on selling outside of the US, then depending on, the products you sell, et cetera, is you could be shooting yourself in the foot, missing out on, double the amount of revenue and double the amount of exposure. So, I mean, Pearl, to your point, look how big Canada is on this map, but it represents such a small part of it.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So Pearl, let's you and I tackle this together about why to sell globally. So Pearl, number one, growing your brand and growing market share and being able to sell outside of one country. You and I have seen this shift of, all resellers exclusively, 5+ years ago, and then this massive shift to private label. And you've seen that in your own business as we do as well. I mean, let's talk about just like the ability for brands to actually gain exposure outside of their home. I mean, they don't have the restrictions that a lot of other resellers do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen, for the trend for the last couple of years were the very big sellers were reselling many different, very different products, be it electronics, clothing. What we've seen happening over the last year is these huge sellers, we're talking top 100 Amazon sellers, are all starting their own private label brands, so they could differentiate themselves in the market. And number two, there are so many new restrictions now when you're reselling product. When it comes to the whole private label game, this is how people are able to become a global brand. They start out in the US, they expand further. So, we ship from China too. So we've seen such a big uptick from these sellers that were just shipping from the US out are starting to bring it from China, their own private label brand. So it's been really interesting to see how things are changing. And using this global Amazon selling tool, they're becoming a household brand in places all over the world. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen. I mean, now Teikametrics, we probably 85+% of our folks who use us are their own private labels or their actual own brands. We see the stats in the articles every day about like Apple actually now sells on Amazon, and they didn't before. All these big J. Crew is running their own storefront on Amazon now as well. It's becoming just the marketplace for everybody, even large brands. When you thought that it used to be, oh, if I didn't care about the brand, I'd just go buy something cheaper on Amazon. That's not the case anymore. People are starting their searches on Amazon. So the next thing here
That's
is
it.
product lifecycle and product market fit. I love talking about this one because we talk about a lot about when you advertise in general, you have to consider where your product is in its life cycle. But what I mean by that as an example is fidget spinners, for instance, were huge in the US. And as the fad sort of started to die out and fade away, it got very large in Europe. So you're actually able to take something that would run the end of its life in the US, but imagine actually duplicating that and then selling it in Europe. You're able to add to the life of that product and still get sales out of it. So that's something to really consider as well. And Pearl, I know you had a few examples you could probably talk about here as well. But I mean, it's just you really have the
Sure.
ability to extend the life cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously the trends are usually starting out in America. All the newest styles, for example, with clothing, different shoe styles or different designers. And very quickly it does get saturated on the US platform. And those smart sellers, when they see, the saturation happening on their listings, they're gonna just take the product and quickly send it out someplace else, such as
Yeah.
to the UK or even to Japan. And Amazon has FBA capabilities there, so they're easily able to do that, and they're ahead of the game, and
Sure.
they're actually going to sell it at a higher price
Yeah.
because they're not competing with so many other sellers.
Well,
So
that leads to the
happening.
next point here. The next point being less competition. So just as you said,
Yeah,
take a product that's kind of ran its course here, sell it abroad, or simultaneously while you're selling a widget here, like iPhone cases is an example. You can sell an iPhone case in the US. You can also sell it in Europe because it's ubiquitous in that sense. But because there's less
yeah,
competition and there's less iPhone cases for sale in those marketplaces, you could sell your same iPhone case at a higher price. Again, this doesn't work for every category, but and this goes future looking into one of the things that leverage you can pull about increasing your sales price. You could be selling less units, but yet at a higher price and still having a very large, even an increased margin by selling in these other regions as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on from that, next one being seasonality. So we talk a lot about this as well. Think about Australia. Amazon Australia launch. They're completely flipped in terms of their season. So when it's our summer, it's their winter and vice versa. So if you're selling beach gear or sunglasses in the US, in the off season, when sales slow in the US, it's heating up in Australia or other parts of the world. So you could really be capitalizing on this and actually turning a seasonal business into a year-round business at the exact same time.
Yeah, this is the best thing that happened to so many of our sellers. The fact that they're able to not have to wait a full year to bring stock out. And like you said, sunglasses, you could have new styles every year, and whatever you're selling now could be out of style, next season. And now that the fact that they could send it out to Australia is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And the last one here is diversifying risk. Now, you and I could tackle this from a number of angles. I come from the world of FX and currency. So, as the dollar weakens, let's say in the US, you could actually be more profitable selling in the UK. That's just one example, not to mention not limiting everything you sell to one channel. There's just a lot of ways we could approach this one.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely something that I would have recommended as well. In the UK, for every dollar that you're earning, you're basically getting another 50 cents just because of the currency difference. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, if you're able to sell it at a higher price and the currency's in your favor, that's just another reason to sell outside of your home country. And look, I know we're very heavy with a lot of US listeners. I know we have folks who are maybe somewhere else and Amazon, US isn't their channel. The same methodology applies to other markets as well. Now that we've understand how massive the opportunity is, I want to go back to the basics of defining profit, which is the whole reason we sell on Amazon. And it's something that's very core to what we talk about here at Teikametrics. I mean, you're in the business of lowering shipping costs and opening up these channels. We're in the business of optimizing for profitability. So let's take a look at this. So let's just take the working left to right here. Let's say you have a widget that sells for $100. You're obviously not making $100. You have to consider the ad spend, the FBA fees, the Amazon's commissions they're taking to pick, pack, and ship it. And then you have your seller cost of goods, which is both how much it costs you on a per widget basis, but also the shipping costs. So you have to consider when you're actually selling something, what your true profit is going to be when you actually finally close that sale, all expenses included. So let's look at 3 different ways you can impact this when you're selling internationally. Number 1, you can increase your total revenue. You can obviously just sell more units. So even if you're making less per unit or the same amount, you can just sell more. Number 2, you can increase your sales price. Pearl, you and I just talked about this with less competition. You actually could sell widgets in another market at a better margin because you can increase the sales price. And then the other one, which is, bro, you're gonna crush this when you talk about what you guys do at First Choice and just the industry in general, which is you can actually just lower your costs. So you can have more refined advertising spend. You can lower your shipping costs. Those are all examples of ways that you can impact this. So real quick, I know we had a good question from Leo about patents and trademarks. I'm not an expert in this, but I did want to touch on it. There are a lot of ways that you can make sure that your patent works globally. Matter of fact, if you're trying to get a patent done globally, Chad Rubin from Jubana actually mentioned that you can file for an international patent in France, and the turnaround time to get that patent or trademark approved is a lot more expedited than it is in the US. So I know that's a little bit off of what we were covering here, but Leo, that's a really, really good question. So
nice.
So Pearl, now let's go into these 3 options, and this is where I really want to leverage your expertise when it comes to shipping and how shipping works on Amazon globally and how you can lower your costs, as well as just a look at the basics of, what you need to consider when you're selling in Europe or other countries.
Okay, perfect. So let's get right into it then. So firstly, I just want to make sure that people understand why you actually need to have a shipping provider to make this happen. Most of you sellers are selling in the domestic country that you're living in, for example, in the US or in the UK, and you're able to buy labels or LTL services directly from Amazon directly. Amazon obviously ships a ton, and you're able to get those really cheap rates directly from them, leveraging their volume. But when it comes to the international market, they do not want to get involved with shipping. You know, there's all the custom requirements, and there's the VAT laws and all that kind of stuff that they don't want to get involved with. So they leave it up to the seller to figure it out on their own. So when you're going into Seller Central and actually creating your work order, Amazon will just give you the address where to ship it to, and then it's up to you to find out how am I actually getting my product there. So that's number one. Some of the other reasons why you will need to figure this out on your own. Some of the requirements that Amazon has is that you need to act as the importer of record. They don't want to act as the importer of record. Some of the things you should know about that we're going to touch a little bit further down. I'm just going to brush through this really fast, Jason, because we're going to dive into it a little bit more detailed later. Some things you should know about is making sure to choose the right HS code, which is basically the code that Customs has on file for the product that you're shipping. And I'll explain a little bit more on how that works. Another thing that you should know about when you're shipping internationally is that you must have a VAT number in order to be able to do so. I know there is a misconception out there. People think, oh, I am not registered as a company there. Or I am registered as a company there, so I don't need to have a VAT number. So you must have a VAT number in order to sell, for example, on Amazon UK's platform. They will otherwise suspend your account. So you can't even sell there without having one. So let's go right into it, and let's talk about the different options that Amazon has when expanding.
And real quick on this. So a couple things I just want to reiterate. So what this means is if you're based in the same country you're selling in, Amazon is very good about if the goods are coming from that country and just getting shipped there, they have a local, they have partnerships with UPS here as well. But once you're shipping cross borders, you need to look at an alternative service that Amazon doesn't provide. So there's two things here. One, you can certainly do this on your own or go out there and find and there's companies who can help you with any of this. There are companies like First Choice that can help you with this as well. So obviously it's really about just educating you all as to this happening. And then for those who don't know, VAT is value added tax. That is the equivalent of similar to sales tax in the US. So it's just something that instead of we have it on a state to state level, they have it on a country level. So it's actually a lot easier to follow than local sales tax in a lot of ways. You just have to register for it. So with that being said, Pearl, let's go on to the next slide here.
Perfect. Okay. So let's talk about Amazon UK. And I do want to give a shout out to all the other markets that Amazon has with FBA. So people that are already selling in the UK should be aware of the options that are out there. There's Amazon Canada, there's Amazon Europe, which includes France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, and the UK. There's Amazon Mexico, there's Amazon India, there's Japan, there's Australia, and very, very recently there's Amazon Dubai, which is basically under wraps right now. People don't know about this. This is going to be launching. It should be launching any day now. So there's a marketplace called Souk, located in Dubai, that Amazon bought off 5 years ago. That is a huge marketplace, over 40 million buyers a month. It's an English market. The VAT is very low in Dubai. It's only 5%. So it's definitely something that I want to make people aware of, because what Amazon's doing in the next couple of days is they're going to convert Souk into an Amazon platform. So the way it looks like in the US right now, it's going to look just the same way. And there's going to be FBA capabilities, which is super exciting because obviously it's so much easier to do it that way.
That's incredible.
And I'm going to explain right now how that works in the UK, which right now is definitely the second to the biggest market after the US. So let's get into it. So how do I get into the Amazon UK marketplace? So there's two options that Amazon gives you on how to actually be Prime eligible on those marketplaces. So they have a program called the EFN program, And then they have a program called the Pan EU program. I'm going to start with the Pan EU program first because I'm just going to go through it briefly because it's not the kind of program that we highly recommend, especially for sellers starting out, just because of how difficult it is to get it set up and how expensive it can get. So what Pan EU means is that I am going to create a work order in Seller Central. Amazon will give me one location to ship it to in the UK. And then once my inventory is there, Amazon will take my inventory and they'll distribute it evenly throughout the entire EU, which includes warehouse facilities in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, and Czech Republic. Now, it sounds really good, and it is good because my product is going to be closer to my customers, which results in obviously more optimized listings because my product is closer to the customer, like I said. But what happens is you're now legally required to have a VAT number registered in each of those 7 countries, plus you're liable to file your taxes every single quarter or even monthly. Some of these countries require you to file it monthly. So you have a cost of registering it, which these tax agencies charge a lot of money for. Plus, you must file your taxes, which is a headache, number one, and it's also expensive to have somebody do it for you. So what we recommend is going with the EFN program, which stands for your European Fulfillment Network, which basically the same thing. You're going to be shipping your product to one location in the UK. But the difference is that it stays in the UK. And if somebody places an order, let's say from Germany, Amazon, for a small extra fee, will go ahead and fulfill my product directly to the customer in Germany. So the benefit of that is that I only need to have one of that number in the UK, and my shipping will be cheaper. Shipping to other countries besides for the UK, if you're shipping it directly to those countries, customs is a nightmare. Other benefits, your product will be there available much faster, because if you're getting, like I said, with a Pan EU program, if I'm starting with Pan EU, it could take me a few months until I'm going to be fully set up with all the registrations needed. So we recommend going with EFN. You get your VAT number within 7 to 14 days. You could be live on Amazon. It's super fast, super easy, less requirements, and you're going to be Prime eligible throughout Europe. And Jason, to your point, you mentioned earlier about having your listings translated in all those other marketplaces. This is going to be definitely a huge benefit as well on that side of things. So that's basically it about the EFN program. Yeah. Definitely highly recommend going through this way, just to make your life easier, and you're going to be there much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Pearl. And I just want to address another question by Sai, talking about Brexit and how it's going to affect shipping in the UK. So just for those who don't know, Brexit, the European Union was established of 28 member countries who all came together to form a collective. Much in the way we go state to state, this is a collective of countries that are actually even closer together than our states are. What they do is they have a free trade arrangement between the UK and Europe. But there was a referendum 2 years ago where the UK decided to leave the European Union. So in theory, yes, and it is going to change somewhat the trade relationship between the UK and Europe, but they are such big trading partners that they are already working through specifically how that can be rerouted. At least going this way, you would have, going this way will still be a lot easier than actually going through the Pan EU program when it comes from a VAT and tax perspective. But again, consult a tax advisor. That's not what we do here. But the thing I'd say about that is that we will know about the specifics and given lead time in terms of when things would switch over if things do change. Right now, it seems that they're actually much in the camp of trying to make sure that it's just as smooth as possible, because there's a lot of money to be made, keeping things similarly how they are. But then again, none of us have a crystal ball. So, Pearl, real quick, yep. Back to you then. Let's talk about the 4 biggest mistakes when shipping to Amazon, into Amazon FBA internationally.
Sure, let's do it. Okay, yeah. So mistake number 1, which I found to be the most popular mistake that sellers are making, or doing rather, is marking your shipment with the Incoterm of DDU versus DDP. Now, let me just backtrack just one moment here. and explain what I mean by that. So when you're shipping internationally, for those that are not selling internationally yet, you need to include something called a commercial invoice together with your shipment. What's a commercial invoice? It's like a regular invoice, just stating to customs, what am I shipping, what my value is, so they know how to charge you for the taxes. Now, when you're creating that invoice, there's going to be a section that you need to include something called an Incoterm that will let customs know, and the shipping company, how am I paying for the shipping. So that's where you would need to include something called an Incoterm that will tell them exactly what they're asking. So DDU, what does DDU stand for? It stands for duties and delivery charges are unpaid. And what people are doing is they're writing DDU because in normal international standards is when you're shipping out to somebody internationally, you'll mark it as DDU because usually the receiver is the one that needs to pay for taxes. But we're talking about Amazon here being your receiver, and you must make sure they're not going to owe anything. And this is one of the many reasons why they don't offer shipping, is because of something like this. If they would be offering shipping, they would be left with, that taxes, up to the roof. So we need to make sure that you are marking your shipment with the Incoterm DDP, David Paul, which basically means everything is paid for, that either your shipping company will pay for all the charges on your behalf, or you yourself would be paying it, however the agreement is on your end with your shipper. But make sure, use that term, because the customs department at this point are so familiar with this mistake that even before it gets to the end receiver Amazon, they already refuse your shipment and they send it back. And most people just end up racking up such a high bill that at this point they end up giving up. And I found that this is the biggest mistake that people end up making, and this is where they end up stopping. So just be careful with that.
Yeah, very, very good to know, for sure. And these are just small things that you could easily just make sure you do right up front and to save yourself a lot of headache later.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Mistake number 2, import of record. Import of record. So we touched upon this earlier, and I just want to explain exactly what that means. So import of record is the person or the company that's responsible for the security of your shipment. So normally the receiver will be the importer of record because it needs to be the address in the forwarding country that will be acting as the importer of record. It needs to be an address in the domestic location wherever you're shipping. Now, again, Amazon does not want to be the importer of record. Normally, when you're shipping internationally, again, the receiver will be the importer, but you cannot have that option when it comes to Amazon. So you must make sure that you have a solution of how to make that work. Is you could have an address in the forwarding country, like in the UK, for example, you can have an address over there that will act as the importer. So when you're filling out your commercial invoice that we spoke about earlier, you'll have a section called the importer of record section. And you'll make sure to put in that address, that name. Do not include Amazon, because this is another reason why customs would refuse your shipment. So yeah, definitely make sure the importer of record is not Amazon.
Very, very good to know. And again, a small mistake that you can actually just ensure that you just avoid and save you a lot of headache again. So FBA mistake number 3.
Absolutely. Okay, using the wrong HS code. Okay, so let me just explain what an HS code means. An HS code is, some people call it a harmonized code, some people call it a tariff code. Just want to make sure people understand what I'm talking about. So every item that you're shipping has an HS code in customs database. And when they're clearing your shipment through customs, they're going to include a number that equals your product and clear it that way. Now, every number obviously has a certain tax rate applied to it. Now, just as an example of why something like this is super important, when you're searching for the correct HS code, when you're putting on your commercial invoice when I'm shipping, if you're not going to include an HS code, or you're going to include a wrong HS code, for example, I'm writing clothing, instead of writing specifically if it's children's clothing or it's adult clothing, what happens is customs looks at clothing and they're like, okay, so what are we classifying this as? And in their database, they're just going to go to the top of the list and they're just going to use the most expensive code they have on file. Just that's how the process works. Whatever's on top, that's what they're going to go with. Versus if you would go very specifically and tell them, I am shipping children's clothing, which happens to be exempt of VAT, and versus just writing clothing, and then they're going to just put it under adult clothing, which does have a VAT rate of 20%. You're actually going to be saving yourself a ton of money. So make sure when you're filling out that commercial invoice, number one, include an HS code. Number two, make sure the HS code that you're including is the right one. And if there's a cheap HS code to go with that. And if you need help looking for one, just ask. And we can help you do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, matter of fact, this is actually a part of your solution. This is a free solution you guys provide, right?
Yeah, so this is actually a screenshot of what it looks like on our portal. It's a free tool, the duty and tax calculator tool. It actually works in integration with Pitney Bowes, which obviously is a reputable, very reputable company. So it works in real time. Normal, if you want a subscription, it costs around $50 a month. With us, it's free of charge.
Great, that's awesome. Bro, two quick questions for you. Is it possible, does seller fulfilled Prime exist in Europe?
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
I'm pretty sure it does not. But the question was, is it possible to be Prime eligible if you use a company like DHL? The thing is the way it works, especially in the US, and which would be the same internationally, is the 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company that you work with. They have to be credentialed and meet the standards of seller fulfilled Prime. So it wouldn't be like a courier or DHL. You'd actually have to go with a 3PL that actually is eligible for the program. Is that right?
Exactly. So they have to go up to the standards of Amazon with seller fulfilled Prime. It has to be a 2-day shipping option. So you can't just go with anybody. So yeah, but I don't believe they have it. But whoever had that question, feel free to message me after, and I'll ask my contacts at Amazon.
That's Jacob. And then Carl had a great question, which is, doesn't Amazon collect VAT taxes from customers who purchase products? Amazon requires that your VAT tax to be included with the sales price of your product. So we can both, I'll give this one to you, but yes, essentially, when you sell a product, you have to know that 20% of it is going to go to the VAT. You're collecting that from Amazon, so you're the one who actually has to make that payment. Is that right, as a seller, Pearl?
Yes, that's right. So Amazon collects it, but it's your duty to actually go ahead and submit it into the HMRC. They're not going to do that for you.
Yeah, so the
HMRC
old days,
the UK government.
yeah, Her Majesty's Royal Collections, I believe is the acronym. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to my previous company's days. Great. So yeah, on to mistake number 4. Not planning returns.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very common mistake that people make before starting. They don't realize that the same way Amazon doesn't provide international shipping, they're not going to provide international shipping the reverse way, that if you have an unfulfillable product that needs to be removed from Amazon, they're not going to send it back to you because they don't ship out of the country. So you must make sure that you have a solution in place with a domestic address, let's say for the UK or Canada or Australia, wherever that is. Make sure you have a warehouse in those locations, or a freight forwarder that you can work with that has one that you could ship your product to. And then from there are different options that they could do for you. For example, they could relabel it if the product is brand new, and ship it back into Amazon. Or if it comes to a point that you just want it back at your location in the US or wherever else, they could consolidate those returns, because I'm sure you guys all know that Amazon will literally send your returns back the same way when you place an order from Amazon, in like a ton of boxes. So if we're going to be shipping it back to you that way, it's super expensive. So you want somebody that will consolidate those boxes for you and ship it back to the States that way. Or I know there are many options of having a company work with you that will buy the goods off and then sell it, and they give you a percentage, or they will take a percentage. So yeah, definitely look into those options before starting, because you don't want to get stuck and then Amazon is going to give you a time frame of when it's actually going to be disposed, which I know sellers have struggled with this in the past, and it's so not worth it.
And there's a couple of things to consider here as well. So number one is a category in which you sell in. So if you're selling furniture or larger ticketed items, you have to weigh the cost benefit of where you want that shipped and what you want to do with it. At the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, Let's say that you have a lower valued item, let's say a charger. It's cost prohibitive for you to send it back and then try and resend it and resell it on Amazon. You can work with companies out there that will actually buy your returned inventory and actually sell it on your
Yeah.
behalf as well. Um, this is also
Yep.
another important component too, is look at the country of which you're selling into as well. So one particular example is Germany. So German buying behavior is different than that of the UK. It's different than that of the US, etc. So Germany, for instance, if you were to buy, they're much more customary. If you were to buy five, they wanted to buy an iPhone case, they may buy 5 colors of it, knowing they're going to return 4. So that you
Yeah.
actually have to make sure that you take that into account. In the UK, for instance, their return rate is so much lower compared to a lot of other places of the world. So you can expect less returns there as well. So you just need to think of the context of which the buying behavior, how it is and how it exists as well. And again, there's a lot of resources on this as well, and there are a lot of folks who specialize in understanding some of this stuff. But wanted to make sure I at least touched on that as well. Um,
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to touch upon. I see a couple attendees have asked about Amazon disposing or rather destroying your product. Yes, they can do that, but if you're like what Jason said, there are some products that are really expensive. You don't want that to happen. So make sure you have an option in case you're selling high valued products. For example, cameras or camera lenses. Just make sure you have an option to bring it back instead of Amazon disposing it if it got returned back to them.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right. And then I see Frady asked a question of whether you guys provide international address for returns, and I can answer this one. The answer is yes, because you have warehouses there. Yeah.
Yep. So wherever Amazon has an international location, we have a warehouse to assist with returns. So absolutely.
Great, great, awesome. And then moving on here. Pro tip number one, Pearl, I mean, this is me plugging you guys here a bit, but also it's not just you all. Like, if you're going, some folks just go directly to DHL or FedEx it to ship something globally. You actually can save a significant amount of money going through an FBA broker. And Pearl, I know you guys are brokers of numerous different carriers as well. So you guys can get folks anywhere between 60 to 80% off their shipping fees globally. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the same way Amazon provides those super cheap rates for, the domestic, like for the US sellers or UK sellers that are based in the UK, the same way they do that because of the volume, we do the same for the Amazon international market. So Amazon drives a load of business to us. So we get those really cheap rates from the carriers because we ship a lot with them. So we're passing those savings over to our customers. So we work with carriers like FedEx, DHL, UPS. We go directly to airlines as well for like the larger shipments, pallet amounts. And then we work with stream ship lines for the ocean freight. So very large shipments. So we could help with pretty much any kind of shipping method. And with us, the rates would be super competitive versus going directly with the carrier because we already have that credit with the carrier for many years now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So perfect. So moving on to the next bit here. So Pearl, you mentioned quite a bit of this as well, but let's just go through a couple of the things that you guys actually provide.
Sure. So we provide an importer of record address for all our clients using our dedicated shipping platform where our sellers are able to create those shipments. We'll automatically have you act as the importer of record with our international addresses. Our support is amazing. Jason, I know we share many clients and you know that yourself, you go online, you'll see our reviews. I let the black and white text talk for itself.
I love that.
The support over here, yeah, right. So we'll have our team really walk you through every step from the registration down to your shipment directly into Amazon's door. And again, about our online portal that will just simplify the process. It will take you 3 to 4 minutes from start to finish to create those shipments. Our services don't have any service fee or any monthly fee like other platforms have. Being shipping companies I'm referring to. Again, about the rates, our rates are up to 80% off the carriers rates, published rates. And we are offering a special for today's webinar attendees, which is a big one. So we're offering free VAT registration in the UK for anybody that will mention Teikametrics. So that's a big one.
That's equivalent of $1,000. So that's very generous.
Yep.
Thank you. Great. So
Absolutely.
moving along here. I know we have 10 minutes, so this is going to shift gears to talking about advertising. So we've covered lowering your costs. Now, how can we gain meaningful revenue and increase sales velocity? So, firstly, the most important thing you can do is have a properly optimized listing. I cannot say this enough, and I have to continually say this, but hopefully it gets through to some folks here. Google Translate. Do not use it. This is a horrible recipe for disaster. Have a native speaker write it for you. And this even goes for the UK. You think they speak English? They obviously certainly do, but the words are different. Like we say sweater, they say jumper. We say tennis shoes for tennis shoes. They refer to them as trainers. So you need to make sure that if you translate a listing, that even if for Canada or the UK, I mean, changing your S's, your Z's to S's for a lot of words. These are very simple things that will make you stick out like a sore thumb, or worse yet, not even get found because it doesn't follow along with the actual buying habits in their own language. So, pro tip number 2. I know we all talk about optimizing our listing and the copy of it, but I cannot express this enough. Do not forget to translate infographics. So here's an example of a company that is a very successful company that sells, predominantly in the U.S., but they sell refrigerators. But notice the second bullet, keeps chill all the way down to 34 degrees. Now, if you're in the U.S., this makes sense because it's Fahrenheit. That's a temperature, obviously just above freezing. But for somebody who's on Celsius, they'll think that they're going to serve you beer that's as cold as Saudi Arabia in the middle of the summer. So you need to make sure that you actually do translate your infographics as well. So now that's been covered. I've said my piece there. Let me share this quote that was shared by Marketplace Pulse. We all know how big of a behemoth Amazon's advertising platform has been. The run rate's over $10 billion. The internet makes it possible for any product from anywhere in the world to be found on Amazon. How do shoppers find your brand? That's via advertising. So, poll number 2, are you already leveraging sponsored products globally? So let me go ahead and quickly launch this poll. And yeah, let's go ahead and see what these results are here as well. Give us 1 second. You should see it pop up here momentarily. I love the engagement. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. We've maintained strong attendance, which is incredible. So thank you all so much. So let me go ahead and close this down here as well, and let's share these results. So we have a lot of folks here, in 66%. That represents actually a lot of folks who are selling internationally. They just aren't using it yet. So we know a lot of folks are selling internationally but not leveraging advertising. I've dabbled in sponsored products, 20% there, and 15%, it's a big part of your strategy. That is great. It's really good to see folks see the importance of advertising. So now let me hide these results and let's get into a few last nuggets about advertising and really how to just take advantage of it. So one announcement, Teikametrics Flywheel now supports international Amazon channels. UK, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, India, Mexico, Canada, US, and we continue to add more as well. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to that. We just launched that very recently. So leveraging advertising to scale globally. Tip number 1, run automatic campaigns. We call this the exploratory method. So why is this important? First off, it allows you to gain first page placement even with little to no reviews or sales velocity. Then Amazon is doing the keyword testing for you on your behalf, so you can quickly see which keywords are actually converting. And then lastly, whether you're testing a brand new market you've never been into, or you're testing a new product on an already successful channel for you, this is the absolute best way to test, is when you have a properly optimized listing and you're running advertisements against it. The one thing I will say here, the goal here is certainly not profitability. It's to simply prove that there's demand and you can gain sales velocity for this product. The way I would recommend approaching selling on a channel globally is actually looking at, okay, at scale, if I were to move X amount of widgets, or, the same widgets I'm moving in the US, or 20% of that, what are my numbers there? Am I profitable at scale? If that's the case, then just prove that there's a demand for your product. And the best way to do that is actually to leverage advertising, because once you've established that, you then can take a more refined approach to increase your conversions and lower your costs. So tip number 2, utilize manual campaigns to mirror your automatic ones. This is the exploitation method. So what this is about here is, for every auto campaign you run, you have where you're exploring keywords, you have a manual campaign where you can actually move your auto keywords that are performing very well into manual campaigns. Because within your manual campaigns, you can control the bid better. You can actually refine your keyword targeting and move them into more specific groups. An example is, you can have a broad match that you can move into a phrase match. You have phrase match that you can move into an exact match. So let's use an example. Let's say you're selling men's boots. A broad match may be boots. So anybody who searches boots, you get the potential to show up for. Obviously, the conversion isn't going to be as great because you may be looking for, kids' boots or women's boots. It's not specifically men's boots. Phrase match would be, okay, let's refine this a little bit more. And let's just say if anybody looks up men's boots or boots men boots, that you're able to potentially show up. Drilling down even more specifically, if you were to actually bid on the keyword men's boots size 10, it isn't as searched, but every search that you show up for, you have a much higher likelihood to convert that sale. So with that being said, this is going to help you drive more revenue at much better conversion rates. But the beauty here is you're gaining this revenue at less cost per sale. So if you go back to the margin we looked at as well, Pearl talked about how you can decrease your shipping costs, which can improve your margin. We're talking here about how you refine the Amazon costs, which is advertising being one of them as well. So working with a local, this is the last one I want to leave you guys with. So tip number 3, are you working with a native speaker? If yes, one very good tactic is to get a list of, if you're first setting up your campaign, so you're going to have an auto campaign and a manual, it takes a little bit of time, maybe like a week or so, to start seeing automatic campaigns being ran as tests to see whether they're converting. In the meantime, you can get a list of keywords that they'd recommend adding to manual campaigns, and this way you're not just simply waiting on auto campaigns. The beauty here is, if you work with a local as opposed to just guessing, you're going to make sure that they're going to be relevant because it actually is the local language. The one note I will say is keywords from auto campaigns are the most important because Amazon's already done the testing for you. It's not as simple as going to Google and finding, a phrase that people search and then dumping all those keywords into Amazon. It's simply not going to work very effectively. So if you're not using a local and you're on your own here, as always, wait for your auto campaigns to come through and trust the Teikametrics data and the keyword actions we give you. So the reason is our technology is pulling directly from each local Amazon market. Amazon's API is our language. So while you might not understand it, we understand, and we're pulling this directly from Amazon, that these are the specific keywords, whether they make sense to you or not, that are actually working. We have the ability to actually recommend that for you as well. So that concludes our time for today. Our takeaways very quickly: the global Amazon marketplace is massive. Are you taking advantage of it? Amazon's global FBA program runs very similar to the USA, so leverage the heck out of it. Review the 5 most common mistakes and how to avoid them. And then next, whether you're new to global selling or an expert, advertise the most effective and measurable way to drive meaningful traffic. And then Pearl, you mentioned this, but this is very gracious. So anybody who's launching in the UK or is thinking about it, Pearl and her team at First Choice Shipping will provide a free UK VAT registration. So Pearl, thank you so much for that.
No, my pleasure. Our pleasure.
Yeah.
So I actually will include my email address. So if anybody is interested in this offer, they can email me directly, and we'll honor that with the code Teikametrics.
Yep, absolutely. Great. And then We've just rolled out a free 30-day trial of Teikametrics Flywheel, our brand new next gen solution. We're offering anybody the ability to try it for free for 30 days. So visit teikametrics.com. Feel free to email me directly. My email is jmagee, JMAGEE at teikametrics.com. And I'm happy to share Pearl's email as well. And that rounds us out. I know folks that they need to drop off because it's the top of the hour. That's fine. But I know we have some good questions. So Pearl, if you have a couple more minutes, let's actually just take some of these. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Great. So the first one is, is VAT included in the shown price or added upon checkout? That's a question from Alexander.
Yes, Amazon will include VAT. So you should know that it's being collected. So make sure that you're actually, paying that quarterly, and whoever's helping you with your tax filing will explain to you how you can actually pull those reports out from Amazon and pay it the proper way to the HMRC.
Yep, great. And then the second question, does Amazon charge 50 cents to dispose of inventory like in the US?
I believe the fees are cheaper than in the US, but if you need an exact number, I can get a hold of that for you. So just email me directly and I'll get that for you.
Yep, great. And then Alexander also asked, can a 3PL or Amazon dispose of returns in the EU? It's going to really be dependent upon the 3PL that you use if they offer that service. So
yeah,
Pearl,
but a good one should be able to. Yeah, so Amazon definitely could dispose it. So I don't know why somebody would remove it and then dispose it at a 3PL. I guess maybe they want to see if the goods are in good condition or not. But a good 3PL should be able to provide you with that service.
Yep. And then another question too is, going back to the infographics section that we were talking about, can you have a different infographic show on a different ASIN in a different country? So correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference is if you're on the EFN network, you have one master listing that anybody can buy from as long as you make it eligible for it to be shipped to somebody in the EU. If you were to go the pan-European route and you actually create a local presence on each Amazon market, you actually can have a specific listing for each country that you're selling in. Is that your understanding as well, Pearl?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
Okay. I see another question. Somebody was asking, what value do I have to declare on my shipment when I'm shipping it into Amazon? So this is a big mistake people make as well. They declare the full value of what they're selling it for on the commercial invoice when you only need to put on what your cost is. So your taxes are definitely going to be much lower because the goods are not sold yet. Amazon's selling it for you. So make sure you're putting the value of what you purchased it for and not what you're selling it for.
That's really, and another thing too, the way VAT works, and it's very complex. So that's why you should recommend somebody that could set it up for you. But if I'm selling, let's say my good costs $10 and I'm selling it for $20, Amazon is going to, the UK is going to charge me 20% of that $20 as the VAT. But I can get a rebate based on $10 as my cost. So instead of paying 20% on the $20 sale price, I'm only paying 20% on the sales price minus my cost. Is that correct as well?
So there's two places that people are paying taxes, and correct me if I don't understand your question properly. So you're paying import taxes when it ships into the EU, and then you're paying taxes again when somebody is filing your taxes every quarter. So people are like, wait, so am I paying taxes twice? You're not gonna be paying twice. You're gonna have a rebate, like what you said. The UK government will have on file how much you paid when it was imported into the UK, and then whatever you owe them on your sales taxes. For example, you owe them $100 and you pay $20 when importing, you're only going to have to pay them $80 because you already paid the $20 when you imported it. So make sure that the freight forwarder, whoever you're working with to ship the product, that you're getting a receipt, basically what it's called is a C-79 form, that will have the proof that you paid those taxes in case they don't have it recorded properly on their end. They being, you know, the UK government, where it works the same way for Canada or many other marketplaces. Make sure you have that receipt from the carrier showing that you paid those taxes, so you get that reimbursed when you're filing your taxes.
Yeah, awesome, great. And then, folks, lastly, we're going to be sharing these slides, and I believe this recording will probably go up on YouTube as well. If we're not gonna, if not, we'll email it as well. So you guys are going to certainly get this as well. But I think that's it from our side. Pearl, we can put both your and my email in this channel as well. But I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. Pearl, it was such a pleasure having you join as well. I just want to say thank you so much for all of the all the knowledge here, and we kept a packed house here. So very, very, very good content. Thank you so much, Pearl.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thank you guys, and yeah, we'll speak soon. Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks, bye.